welcome to the program. I'm your host Marty, and you're in the Breakroom. On this episode, we'll be taking a look at another single story, and this song is, it's kind of known that a first single that a band puts out can be very important to their career. And what makes this song we'll be looking at today on this episode is because it actually was a hit for two different groups. Two versions were made in the same year by both songwriters. So we'll take a look at one of those songwriters and his version of this song. Here is Fun Boy 3 doing their version of Our Lips Are Sealed.
Nothing must be revealed. It doesn't matter what they say. No one listens anyway. Our lips are sealed. There's a weapon that we can use in our defense. Silence, so just look at them. Look like the then. That's when they disappear. That's when we lose the fear. It doesn't matter what they say.
So sit back, relax, fire up a cup of tea, and watch the pictures as they fly through the air. We'll be right back.
I wrote this next song while spending my day off working at a PTA bake sale. It's called I Wish I'd Been a Biker Chick.
Welcome back. Our story begins when a ska band from England named Madness is touring the United States in March of 1980. And they're here on the West Coast, and they'll be playing at the famed Whiskey A Go-Go nightclub. And the opening band for Madness is a band they've never heard of called the Go-Go's. They have no idea what a Go-Go is, but the Go-Go's are a unique band for a lot of reasons. They, when they first started out, they were kind of considered like a novelty punk girl group. But in the 2 years since they've been around, they've actually worked themselves up to a point where they can earn an opportunity of playing at the Whiskey A Go-Go and definitely opening up for Madness. Madness just loves the Go-Go's, and they ask them if they want to come over the next month and kind of do a little bit of a tour for a couple months in the UK with them as one of their opening acts. And the Go-Go's think, England, England is Mecca for any musicians or anyone that grew up in the 60s that knows how important England was to music and fashion, and for them to go to England is going to be fantastic. So they sell and get rid of most of their possessions to get tickets to go to England to tour with Madness, and they get a rude awakening on how the UK audiences are, especially for a group of girls coming from Hollywood playing rock and roll. This is a ska band with a ska audience, and some of the members of the audience are also skinheads, which are like hardcore punks over there, and they do not want to see an all-girl band from Hollywood. And I mean, they're intimidating. They're spitting at the girls. There's stories that Belinda comes off stage with spit dripping from her, and they hold on and stay with it for 2 months. Now, not all of the audience members in Madness's audience likes the Go-Go's, but they do, and they actually convinced their record company to put out a single. So Stiff Records puts out the first Go-Go single in England on Stiff Records. One side is We Got the Beat, and I think the other side is How Much More. Anyhow, the record doesn't do that well in England, but it does really well over here as an import. It actually gets on the chart with danceable songs, the dance chart, I guess. And that's the first time We Got the Beat is shown to an American audience. Another ska band from England is aware of the Go-Go's, and they too want the Go-Go's to come over and tour for 3 months over in England. This band is called The Specials. And like being on the Madness tour, they're in northern England touring everywhere, and they say they have no money and they're drinking cough syrup to catch a buzz. The song Our Lips Are Sealed starts when Jane Whelan of the Go-Go's, who's most of her life doesn't feel like she belongs anywhere. She is kind of an outcast. When she gets out of high school, she actually attends Fashion Institute and goes by the name Jane Drano. But again, she's a nice girl, and she meets somebody because she loves English boys, I guess. And the guy she meets is Terry Hall of The Specials, and during the time they're together, they kind of have a mutual crush. They're hanging out together all the time, and there's definitely some sparks flying between her and Terry Hall. And the problem with that is that Terry Hall is known in England, so wherever he goes, there's fans that recognize him, and he's walking around with Jane all the time, and that's kind of a problem. They're trying to keep this on the low because Terry has a fiancée, and according to Jane, he said, you know, I've got to marry her. I'm a good Catholic boy, and you know, I just have to marry her. And it was a difficult situation, obviously, for both of them. Back in the U.S., the Go-Go's are kind of like a triumphant band coming back from these tours in England, and they're a polished band now. They've been in, you know, the hardest situations and come through it. And because of the sales of this Stiff Records they put out, the single, IRS Records sees them and signs them in 1981 in April to a contract with IRS Records. About the same time, Jane is sending letters back and forth to Terry and back and forth and kind of talking about how much they care for each other. And Terry writes about kind of the bad part of the relationship. There can be gossip, and he's kind of experiencing some of that. But he's telling Jane, we know what was really going on, and we know how we feel about each other. Don't worry about all this gossip. And Jane kind of sees these letters and says, there's some lyrics in here that he's written to her. So she takes the letters and the lyrics and kind of adds more lyrics and puts music to it, and she creates this song. Now Jane is concerned about the band liking this song. It would kill her if they don't. I mean, they were a punk band at one time, and this is definitely power pop. I mean, it's kind of, the undertones are kind of dark and everything, but it's very danceable. And she presents it to the band, and they love it. And they ended up recording it for their first album that we put out in July. This single was released a month before in June, and it reaches number 20, Our Lips Are Sealed.
People
success of this single allows them an opportunity to open for the Police when they're touring. For months they go with the Police and start touring. And during this time, their album, and it's the first time a female band has reached #1 that plays their own instruments and sings their own songs. There are other female groups, you know, that did well, like the Supremes or the Shangri-Las or Martha and the Vandellos, the Crystals, but not a band. There's the Runaways, but they didn't have the success as the Go-Go's have with Our Lips Are Sealed. The band breaks up and gets back together over the years. In 2011, they get their name on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. In 2021, the band finally gets inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and here they are doing that song, Our Lips Are Sealed. It's not unusual for a first song to do well for a band. I mean, there are obviously groups and bands that had a #1 with their first song. That's not the case here. But the number 20 song was very important for the Go-Go's. It kind of opened up the door, so when We Got the Beat came in, it kicked it open and just drew on their success. One of the things about the band is it broke through the glass ceiling as far as boy groups or men groups. It showed that females can rock just as hard. This band has been together on and off for some 47 years. And although it started as a punk band and became kind of a power pop band, there are other bands like the Beatles. The Beatles started out with, you know, all in leather and all wanting to be, you know, Gene Vincent. So it does happen. This band had been ridiculed and dismissed for years. And there's something to be said about stick-to-itness. Anyhow, thanks for watching this edition of The Breakroom, Single Stories. And we'll see you next time.